You're listening to Quorum Radio.
100,000 watts. Leela Rose, this episode of Quorum Radio is dedicated to you. I interview Reverend Jim Harden today, CEO of Compass Care, who took over for the late Chris Slattery after Chris passed away last November. I'm Bill McIntosh, and I've been in the pro-life movement since 1978 as a protester, sidewalk counselor on the street, and fundraiser who was there helping Chris Slattery when he started his first pro-life center in Manhattan in 1984. Also working there as a counselor to expectant mothers and an activist for life in Colombia, where I lived for many years. At the pro-life counseling centers, you are on the front line of saving innocent unborn children from the evil of abortion. Manhattan, New York City, arguably the epicenter of the war on the unborn.
It's really hard to imagine. It's hard to wrap our mind around the impact of, pro-life Christian pregnancy centers. And I'm telling you this, they are on the chopping block if Harris gets in office. And I say that because Harris has a track record of attacking pregnancy centers.
Please put into relief what is at stake concerning crisis pregnancy centers coast to coast with a very rabidly pro-abortion Kamala Harris in the White House.
So when Kamala was in California as the Attorney General in California, there was the California passed a law requiring pregnancy centers to refer for abortion. Okay, this totally violates their mission, totally violates their conscience, and many of them, of course, said no, and they got a lawyer, they have an attorney's, and I believe it was Thomas More Society or Alliance Defending Freedom that I think it was Alliance Defending Freedom that covered them, and they went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the court case was originally entitled Harris versus NIFLA, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. Now, and so pro-life pregnancy centers are affiliated with NIFLA. Oftentimes they're medical pregnancy centers. And Kamala Harris, wanted to shut down these pregnancy centers for refusing to refer women for abortion. And that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And it was one of the last cases. Kennedy was oftentimes a swing vote in these cases. It was one of the last cases he took. And he said, he actually sided with pregnancy centers. He said, look, you can't do this to pregnancy centers. This is a slippery slope. As soon as the state steps in and starts to dictate what a pregnancy center or any group of people, including a religious group of people like these pregnancy centers, can and cannot say, and enforcing them to carry the political water of the state, religious liberty is on the chopping block.
Broadcasting from the United States of America, this is WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida, Radio Miami International.
Early voting in the 2024 election has begun, and you just know that all the enemies of human life, of our Christian faith, of our Christian medical professionals, and of the 3,500 pro-life counseling centers are hell-bent on winning the White House and the control of the judiciary. Kamala Harris has also stated that concessions for religious exemptions should not be made for abortion.
What concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example? Is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
The stakes are incredibly high. According to the Lo Sierra Institute, the estimated number of lives saved by pro-life pregnancy centers in the United States from 2016 to 2020 was 828,131. That amounts to approximately 207,000 children saved per year, or over 560 babies saved from abortion per day, thanks to crisis pregnancy centers nationwide that Planned Parenthood would love to slaughter. Pro-aborts like Kamala Harris will weaponize the DOJ to attack these life-saving centers with vicious aggression. If anyone can save America and these grassroots pro-life centers from a weaponized DOJ and FBI, it's Donald J. Trump. Well, folks, you all know that I and you are following the election 2024 in the United States of America. No secret that it's purported to be very close. I'm on with Jim Harden. You may wonder who he is. I'll tell you all about it. He's executive director CEO of Compass Care Pregnancy Services, which is a national affiliation of pro-life medical pregnancy centers, one of which was firebombed in Buffalo, New York on June 7th, was 2022, right, Reverend Jim?
Yeah, exactly.
Their website, by the way, check it out, is www.compasscarecommunity.com. That's www.compasscarecommunity.com. The reason I wanted to have him on is that Leela Rose, who's a very, very well-known pro-life podcaster, basically came out and said about a month ago that Donald Trump has to earn the pro-life vote.
Here's my message to the Trump campaign. This is my message from pro-life Americans. Fight for life. It's the right thing to do. In fact, he's trying to sound like a Democrat on abortion. And the response from the pro-life community right now is crucial. I'm encouraging Trump to get out there and fight for life. And I want to encourage the pro-life community right now. We are 2 months, a little over 2 months out before the election. Minds are still being made up. I urge all pro-lifers to come out right now and say, President Trump, stand for life. President Trump, if you want the pro-life vote, fight for life.
Many people who are pro-life are a little bit, more than a little bit, disturbed and concerned about Trump's overtures to the people who believe in so-called choice. And regardless of where you're at, it's undeniable that Donald Trump had a lot to do with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which happened while Joe Biden was in office. It was leaked. That decision was leaked. We then saw Jim's pro-life counseling center, and basically it's a medical services clinic for expectant mothers who are in difficult circumstances, was firebombed. About $500,000 in damage. And I want to get to that a little bit later, but I want to get Reverend Jim Harden's response to Leela Rose and her posture that Donald Trump has to earn the pro-life vote. What are your thoughts, Reverend?
If past performance is any indicator of future behavior, you're going to have Donald Trump and a Trump administration that's going to be very similar, a muscular conservative group of people that are going to be implementing likely very pro-life, pro-human policies, similar to what Trump did in his first term. He was heavily attacked, from all angles because of his kind of posture around the concept of making America great again. Now, the reason why that's being attacked is because pro-abortion politicians in charge of the Democrat Party, like Kamala Harris, are actually Marxists. And the people that firebombed Compass Care, they didn't just attack Compass Care. These are Antifa Marxists that hold the same philosophy as people like Kamala Harris. And these people their goal. This is their stated goal: to destroy the nation-state system that is represented by the United States of America as a bulwark, in order to pave the way for a global communism. That's the Antifa's goal. It's a global Marxist insurgency that has base in Portland, Oregon. A lot of activity going on in Buffalo. A lot of activity going on in New York City, and places like that. So, look, there's a reason why the Biden DOJ, the Biden Kamala Harris DOJ, and FBI did not investigate and did not indict, over 300 attacks on peaceful pro-life people. Instead, what they did was they used the law, the FACE Act, as a bludgeon to beat pro-life people into submission, throwing pro-life grandmothers in federal prison for simply using their voice to speak on behalf of the voiceless preborn boys and girls. That's happening in America today. And if Harris gets in, mark my words, she's going to stack the Supreme Court and all these other things that we've got 8 lawsuits going on right now, Bill. 8 lawsuits. We've got lawfare going on. We've got legislation being written against us from New York State governor. We've got Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York State, coming against us, filing lawsuits against us, trying to shut us down. Strategic lawsuits against public participation. They don't want any kind of public pro-life expression anywhere in this country. Why? Because pro-life people is a manifestation of Christian morality that undergirds the nation-state system globally. This is not just about America. This particular vote, this particular election day coming up in November is probably the most important election day since George Washington was elected. You look at what happened with us in Buffalo, and you realize, okay, we found somebody. We got somebody arrested. She even, pled guilty to the charge of violating basically the FACE Act. And the DOJ refused to indict. And this, by the way, we got Merrick Garland under oath to commit under the Senate Judiciary Committee to commit to prosecuting somebody if somebody was found. Well, and this was about Compass Care, by the way. And he said he would, but we just, if we can find somebody. Well, we found somebody. He was served it up, and they refused to prosecute. And I think the reason why is because the person in charge of the prosecutions in the Civil Rights Division is named Kristen Clark, and she is, knowingly, avowedly, defund the police, BLM, Antifa supporter, and is publicly against pro-life pregnancy centers. That's why, we've got to politicize DOJ and FBI, and I think if we get a conservative, if Trump gets in office, he's got a house cleaning job that I'm not sure is possible. This goes way deeper than just replacing the leaders like Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray. This goes down to the rank and file. We've got DEI hiring policies that have allowed for virtually, an infiltration of Antifa sympathizers within the rank and file of these federal law enforcement agencies. Yes, Jane's Revenge took responsibility for it. The first firebombing they engaged was Mother's Day, May 8th, 2022. And they sent out a communique taking responsibility for it and issuing a 30-day ultimatum for pregnancy centers to shut down or face a similar fate. Firebomb.
That's terrorism.
It is terrorism. Oh, it's bald-faced terrorism, domestic terrorism. And so on day 30, we of course didn't shut down. They firebombed us. So they wrote another Marxist communique taking responsibility for it. They wrote Jane's Revenge in their typical Jane's Revenge kind of script on graffiti script on our walls. So these are basically Jane's Revenge is a front group for Antifa.
Getting back to, let's say, approach that Lila Rose is taking, I'm sure she's somebody who's very aware of the importance that crisis pregnancy centers play in the fight for human life and to save innocent unborn children. Can you give us like a 30,000 foot or more view of pro-life counseling centers in the United States? Do you have any? Can you tell us? Not to put you on the spot, Jim, because we have a big country and there's always, I suppose, operations like this opening up, large and small. How many crisis pregnancy centers are there in the United States, approximately?
Well, there's approximately 3,500 pregnancy centers in the United States. About half of them are medicalized, meaning they provide some semblance of medical care, baseline OB care. And Compass Care has created a whole new philosophy of ministry that has being used. Our services, our materials, our strategies are being used by over 800 pregnancy centers nationwide right now.
Wow.
And we've got we provide the lion's share of medical services, pro-life medical alternatives in New York State. New York State being the abortion capital of the nation. And in New York City, we're largely, actually in Brooklyn and the Bronx, we're the only provider. We're the only ethical alternative to women facing unplanned pregnancy and considering abortion in Brooklyn and the Bronx, which are essentially the abortion headquarters.
Wow. So, okay. So 3,500 pro-life counseling centers, a huge number of which are, well, maybe you said half have medical operations like yours?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
It's amazing. So just wondering, that's an immense number. How many women do they see? Ballpark figure and turnarounds.
Oh, every year. We combined the Charlotte Lozier Institute did a study just recently, and I don't remember the exact number, but we're talking, in the hundreds of thousands of women. We're giving away millions and millions of dollars worth of free medical care, just Compass Care alone. Say nothing of all the other pregnancy centers nationwide, and that doesn't even include the material assistance and the community aid, the thousands, tens of thousands of man hours, professional man hours, volunteer physicians and nursing and all the rest. It's just absolutely astounding at the level of coordination and funding, which is not being given to us by the state or federal taxpayer. This is all coming from individuals and churches. So it's really an amazing story of the intensity and the passion and dedication of the people of God to save lives, women and children from abortion.
Jim, if you had to make a bet, just like bet the farm on it, and you probably win. What do you think? How many children a year are saved by these 3,500 crisis pregnancy centers across the United States of America per year?
Oh,
Ballpark.
per year, I'd say 50,000 babies.
Wow. Maybe more. I mean, I think Chris Slattery, whom
Oh,
I knew and you knew very well. I mean, did he ever come up with an estimate? I don't remember if he actually did or not.
well, I know
Of
that
his of
Chris
his
during
30
during
years or
Chris's
plus.
yeah, during Chris's tenure, I think he alone in the pregnancy centers that he ran in New York was
New York
responsible for
City.
seeing, yeah, in New York City was responsible for seeing 40,000 babies saved just in New York City. So yeah, we've there's so many. I mean, it's really hard to imagine. It's hard to wrap our mind around the impact of pro-life Christian pregnancy centers. And I'm telling you this, they are on the chopping block if Harris gets in office. And I say that because Harris has a track record of attacking pregnancy centers.
That's
The
right.
the
Yeah, hone
actual
in on that. Yeah, that's important. I mean, I think Lila Rose knows this. Please put into relief what is at stake concerning crisis pregnancy centers coast to coast with a very rabidly pro-abortion Kamala Harris in the White
Yes.
House.
So when Kamala was in California as the Attorney General in California, there was a little. The California passed a law requiring pregnancy centers to refer for abortion. Okay, this totally violates their mission, totally violates their conscience, and many of them, of course, said no, and they got a lawyer, where they have an attorney's, and I believe it was Thomas More Society or Alliance Defending Freedom that I think it was Alliance Defending Freedom that covered them, and they went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the court case was originally entitled Harris versus NIFLA, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. Now, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates is a group of, it's an organization that represents pregnancy centers. It's an affiliation network, okay? And so pro-life pregnancy centers are affiliated with NIFLA. Oftentimes they're medical pregnancy centers. And Kamala Harris, wanted to shut down these pregnancy centers for refusing to refer women for abortion. And that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And it was one of the last cases. Kennedy was oftentimes a swing vote in these cases. It was one of the last cases he took. And he said, he actually sided with pregnancy centers. He said, look, you can't do this to pregnancy centers. This is a slippery slope. As soon as the state steps in and starts to dictate what a pregnancy center or any group of people, including a religious group of people like these pregnancy centers, can and cannot say, and enforcing them to carry the political water of the state, religious liberty is on the chopping block. That's what we have at stake. It's not just pregnancy centers; it's religious liberty. And if you think that Kamala Harris stopped her prosecution and persecution of pro-life people when she became vice president, you have another thing coming, because she actually was part of the reproductive health task force that started after Roe versus Wade came down with the Dobbs case in July of 2022. And at that point, she got Joe Biden to sign an executive order to create a reproductive health task force and
create
demand
a
that
what?
a reproductive health task force.
Okay.
And what this reproductive health task force was tasked to do by the DOJ was to look into, quote, the fraudulent practices of pregnancy centers. Okay. Now you've got the California Attorney General, you've got the New York State Attorney General, all attacking pregnancy centers. We've been sued by the Attorney General of New York State for, quote, fraudulent practices or deceptive business practices. It's all a ploy to villainize, demonize, and marginalize pro-life people, get them out of the public square so that the abortion industry has no competition. This is the abortion industry, by the way, this billion-dollar international conglomerate that funds the re-election campaigns of these pro-abortion politicians. They don't care about abortion. They don't care about women. They're happy to sacrifice women's reproductive health on the altar of power.
Yeah, Jim, I want to just looking at the numbers on this. If we have 3,500 of these pro-life counseling centers, to say 50,000 it sounds to me very conservative, because you figure, you got a calculator handy, if each one of these helps save 20 children a year, well, 10 would be 35,000, 20 would be 70,000. And I think these pro-life counseling centers are helping turn around a lot more money, a lot more women, and saving more than just 50,000 children a year. I think that's a very conservative estimate. I think it could be as high as 100,000 or 200,000.
It very well could be. Yeah, it very well could be. It's hard to track because these pregnancy centers are all independent, and the pregnancy center movement, so to speak, is highly fragmented. There's not like a one kind of clearinghouse group that represents all pregnancy centers.
Right. It's just something I'll just mention to you. I went to church the other day, went to mass, and very solid guy was like, I don't know about voting for Trump. I'm like, come on, man, this is a vote for Kamala Harris if you don't vote for Trump. Because, people like Randy Terry, I think, made a really big mistake by going to doing this for running for president. It's just a protest vote. And what we're going to see happen, unfortunately, is operations like yours that were based on the sacrificial giving of hundreds of Christians from about 1983, 1984, when Chris started Campus Care, which is just the tip of the iceberg. That's just one crisis pregnancy operation that's been at it for decades. We're talking about a huge tsunami of children that are on the chopping block.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And you know what? The Barna Research Group came out a week ago. George Barna's research shows that nearly half of all church-going evangelicals are not going to be. They do not plan on voting in November. Well, look. Here's the thing. People should know that the Bible says we have an obligation as Christians. We are duty bound to participate. We are duty bound to be subject to the rulers of our government. Now, what if your government is by the people and for the people, as Abraham Lincoln said? Now all of a sudden we've got a layer of nuance that requires citizens like you and I to exercise the most common denominator of our civic duty, which is to vote. To withdraw is to, I think, quite frankly, to withdraw from voting is to essentially give up your influence, because these 41 million people, 41 million Christians who intend not to vote, represent the swing vote, Bill. That's
amazing. Says, that is just so unbelievable, man. This is like it's in a head exploding moment. 41 million evangelicals, and also not just evangelicals. You have Roman Catholic Christians who are also, I don't know, yes. I'm on the fence. Why? Do you want a Kamala Harris in the White House? Are you serious? What will that do for religious rights and for the rights of the unborn? It's just terrible. I wish I could go more time with you, Jim. It's always good to speak with you about Campus Care and the great work you're doing to help save innocent unborn children in the great state of New York. Godspeed to you, and folks, get out and vote for Donald Trump. If anybody knows about the tricks and wiles and the intentions and the strategy of the devil, it's an exorcist like Father Chad Ripperger. Listen to what he has to say about voting when you have two imperfect candidates and voting for the lesser of two evils to basically seek the good that can be obtained by someone who's not as bad as the worst alternative.
And so people will say, well, yeah, but right now we've got, for example, candidates who are not perfect. One actually holds stuff that's really evil, another guy that holds stuff that's also evil, but it's not as bad, etc. In a situation like that, then your obligation is to vote for the lesser of two evils. You're not voting for the person's evil or for the evil that the thing is doing. What you're voting to is to preserve the good that would be lost if the other opponent got in who's more evil, or if the legislation got passed in which was actually even worse. If you don't do that, then you may be responsible if a more evil person gets in, then it's the sin of negligence. We have an obligation to vote for the lesser of two evils because you're preserving the good that would otherwise be lost.
Thank you.
If I could make a wish, I think I'd pass. Can't think of anything I need. No cigarettes, no sleep, no light.
This is WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida, Radio Miami International.